Well, I'm back again with not just one, not two, not three. No, I'm not doing this. 7 Sudokus for your viewing or solving pleasure. I've been going absolutely mad in the last few weeks designing these Sudokus. I've had so much fun. I probably enjoy designing Sudokus more than solving them now, to be honest. And that means that I've got a huge backlog of Sudokus that I'm very proud of, that I would love to be able to share with the world. And what better way of doing that than by copying the format made famous by Cracking the Cryptic. I'll put a link in the description to their YouTube channel, and presenting these solution walkthrough videos on YouTube. Technically, it's not exactly the same format because I'm not solving other people's puzzles. I'm not quite brave enough to try that on camera just yet. But maybe it adds an extra interesting perspective, seeing the setter of a Sudoku talk about their own setting as well as going through the solution to it. Anyway, if this is going to become a regular thing, and I would love it to be a regular thing, posting these videos with my own puzzles, I thought it would be a nice way to kick off this kind of series by having an absolute Sudoku bonanza in the first episode. Well, the second episode, kind of, but the first episode of potentially weekly videos if I'm disciplined enough to stick to that. And I thought, why not have 7 Sudokus that I've designed? They didn't take too long. They're all quite easy to solve, I think. Some a little bit trickier than others, but I think they're all very much manageable. There are links to all of them in the video description, so do feel free to have a go at all of them. I think, like I say, they're all approachable, they're all manageable. Otherwise, feel free to just watch me go through the solution to all of them. Either way, I hope you have a great time, you enjoy yourself. And I will get on with these puzzles. We're going to start with this 3x3 Sudoku. Now, I'm going to be honest, it's very difficult to make a 3x3 Sudoku interesting because there are only actually 12 possible ways to fill in a 3x3 Sudoku, regardless of any clues that you're given. So it's very difficult to make it interesting. But I've drawn an arrow in the shape of an S, either S for Stuart or S for Sudoku. Whichever is more appropriate. And I think this is about as interesting and about as efficient as I can make a 3x3 Sudoku in terms of minimising the clues provided. So what are the rules? Well, we need to fill in each row and column of the grid with the digits 1 to 3 exactly once each. And digits on the arrow sum to the 2-digit total in the pill read left to right. So that's the tens column, that's the units column. In the words of Cracking the Cryptic, let's get cracking. And the first thing to notice is that all of the digits added together, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 18. So there's no way that this can add up to 20 something or 30 something. So that's a 1. And at this point, let's just try the two options. This is either 12 or 13. Let's try 12. If that's 12, then these add up to 12. And then we can add 1 and 2. That's 3. So 12 plus 3 is 15. So in order to make the whole grid add up to 18, we need that to be a 3. But then what can that digit be? It can't be 1, 2, or 3, so we're stuck. So it's not 12, it's 13. So now we've got these adding up to 13. And we've got 1 there and 3 there. So 13 plus 1 plus 3, that's 17. So we need that to be a 1 to make the total 18. And from that point onwards, it's more or less trivial. We can just fill in the rest of the Sudoku very quickly. Now, I did put a bonus challenge in here for extra points. Work out the 3 other number bases for which this puzzle gives a unique solution. What do I mean by a number base? Well, we usually count in base 10. And what that means is, say, for 23, the 3 describes how many 1s there are in the number, and the 2 describes how many 10s there are in the number. 2 10s plus 3 1s equals 23. But we could have any base we like. We could have base 4 for example, where this describes how many ones again, and this describes how many fours there are in the number. So this number is actually 11. It's 2 times 4 plus 3 times 1. That's 8 plus 3, that's 11. So this number is 11. So, does this Sudoku setting work in any other number base? Well, I had to think about this just before I started recording, actually. So I haven't gone through every possibility with complete confidence and thoroughness, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that there are 3 other number bases for which this setting gives a unique solution. I'll just give a quick example, and in fact the example will be 4. I'll show you how it would work if the number base was 4. So like I said, this is 11 because it's 2 times 4 plus 3, that's 11. So we know these add up to 11, plus 2 plus 3, that's another 5, so that's 16 in total. So we need this to be a 2 to complete the 18 that we know the whole grid adds up to, and at that point the rest of the solution becomes trivial again. That's all fine, but 4 is not one of these answers because 4 does not give a unique solution. We can also put 31, which is actually 13 in here. 3 times 4, as we're in base 4, 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1 times 1, that's 13. So that is saying that these add up to 13. Plus 3 plus 1, that's 17, so we need a 1 to complete the 18 for the whole grid, and then of course the rest just becomes trivial again. So there are 2 solutions to this grid in base 4, but there are 3 other number bases, unless I've missed something. There are 3 other number bases where this does give a unique solution. I also tried it extending the arrow out to the very end, so the entire grid is covered with either the pill or the arrow that this 2-digit pill is describing. And again, I think, unless I've missed something, I think there are 3 number bases that work for that as well, and none of those are base 10, interestingly enough. So yes, if that's the kind of puzzle that floats your boat, I'm not going to go through the solution to those 3. Maybe I'll type it in the description or something, or get in touch. Maybe leave your answer in the comments below. Yeah, there we go. That's an excuse to say that. Brilliant. If you do have a go at that, leave your answer in the comments below. And that's an extra little bit of fun, but it's not so much Sudoku. So for now, let's press on to the next puzzle. Oh, you didn't see that. Right, pretend you didn't see that. Good. Oh dear, I could just go back and edit that out, but I don't really want to commit to having to edit things in these videos. I just want a nice pure live solve of all of these Sudokus. Cool, right. So this is S Club 4. Yeah, the title's a bit rubbish to be honest, but but yeah, it's a 4x4 Sudoku. So this time we want each row and column and marked region to contain the digits 1 to 4 exactly once each. These marked regions, usually in a 4x4 Sudoku, the marked regions are just 2x2 boxes, like we have 3x3 boxes in a normal 9x9 Sudoku. But these are irregular marked regions. We've got all of those kind of Tetris shapes going on, and that's the rules. Otherwise, another S, got another S for Stuart or Sudoku, and that's it. So let's have a go. Let's have a look at this arrow first of all. Again, if you want to solve it yourself, the link is in the description below. So let's have a look at this arrow first of all. What's the lowest we can make this entire arrow? If we make this, say, 1, 2 and 3, we can make this 1, 2 and 3, except we can't because that would make both of these 4, and that will clash. But we can make it 1, 2 and 4. So we've got 7 there, plus 6 there. We could make this a 1 potentially, and that totals to 14. So we'd have to put 14 in here. Oh dear, that doesn't work. And if we make that any bigger to avoid that clash, then that becomes 15, and 5 is not a valid digit within a 4x4 Sudoku. So that doesn't work. Okay? What's the largest we can make these 7 digits? We can make these 2, 3, 4. And again, we can't make these 2, 3, 4 as well, because otherwise those would both be 1s, but we can make them 1, 3, 4. So that's 9 here, plus 8 here, and we can make that as big as 4, potentially. 9 plus 8 plus 4 is 21. And that is actually the lowest we can make this 2-digit number if the first digit isn't 1. So that must be what the answer is. Good. And with that information, oh, just before we continue, those 6 cells, we don't know that that's 2, 3, and 4, and that that's 1, 3, and 4. We know that those are the 6 digits involved, but the 2 and the 1 might swap rows. So let's just not confuse ourselves. Let's delete that for now. Now let's complete this row, and that is what you might have seen in the blooper a minute ago. Yes, that is because this is take 2 of recording this video. I somehow managed to forget to mention the irregular regions rule on the first take. So yeah, that was great. Apparently that's worth restarting the recording for, but giving you the answer isn't. Anyway, let's carry on. I won't take another take for this anymore. So let's just plough through. Let's complete this irregular region with the last digit that we don't already have. So that's a 3. Now, where does 1 go in this irregular region? It has to be here. This now is a 2 and a 4. So this is, we need a 3 to go in here somewhere, and it has to be here, because remember, we needed a 3 and a 4 in both of these rows in these areas to make this add up to 21. So that's a 3, and the last 3 goes here. Now that needs to be a 4 and a 4 there, and a 2 there, and a 1 there, and that adds up to 21. And now we can just complete the puzzle. That's a 1 and that's a 2. There we go. Nice and straightforward. Yeah, I haven't experimented with different number bases for this one. Maybe there's something interesting that can be discovered if we're in a different number base. Maybe there's a unique solution in other number bases, but yeah, I haven't quite gone that far with S Club 4. Alright, so that is the 4x4 Sudoku. Have a wild guess at what the next one's going to be. Yep, it's a 5x5 Sudoku. So fill in each row, column. I've got those the wrong way around. And marked region, again we have irregular 5-cell regions with the digits 1 to 5 exactly once each. Digits on the arrow sum to the total in the attached circle. And just to avoid confusion, these are separate arrows in that it's not true to say that these 6 digits all add up to that number. These 3 digits add up to that number, and those 3 digits separately add up to that number. And those are the rules. Why did I call it ZIPPY? Well, in Puzzle World, a pentomino is a shape that can be made with 5 cells like this, and there are 12 shapes that you can make like that. Well, there are lots more, but they are just kind of reflections or rotations of the original 12. For example, this is just a rotation of this. So really, fundamentally, they're the same shape. They've just been rotated. And to identify which shape you are referring to, there are names for each. Well, there are labels for each shape, and those labels are letters. And the letters are roughly what the shapes look like. So, for example, this is a Z pentomino, and you can kind of see that it looks a bit like a Z. This is an I pentomino. Yep, you can see that. This is a P pentomino. Here it looks more like a Q, but if you imagine it the other way round, the reflection of it, then that looks more like a P. Again, this is a P pentomino, and this is a Y pentomino. You kind of have to flip it upside down and make it diagonal to make it look like a Y, but yeah, that it's as close as you can get, really. There are plenty of other letters to describe all of the others, but I won't get into that now because this is a Sudoku video and I'm going to try and solve this Sudoku. Alright, well the first thing to analyse is this arrow. Can we make these three different digits? Well, if we made them 1, 2 and 3, that would add up to 6, and 6 is not a legitimate digit in a 1 to 5, 5 by 5 Sudoku. So that does not work, so there needs to be a repeated digit, and the only way we can make that happen is by making those two repeat. Similarly, over here we need those two to repeat for the same reason, but they can't be the same repeated digit, so one of them is going to have to be at least 2. So if we put a repeated 1 in here, we'd have to put a repeated 2 in here, and the lowest we can make that is 1, and that does give us the maximum possible total, which is of course 5. That's the biggest digit in a 5 by 5 Sudoku, and that would leave that one being a 3. And that is the only way we can resolve these arrows apart from by reflecting it. So we could just do that all the other way round instead, have the 2, 2, 1 here and the 1, 1, 3 here. But either way, we do know that these repeated digits have to be 1s and 2s, and the corner digits have to be 1s and 3s. Now, in this pentomino, we've already got 1, 2 and 5 in the box, so the 3 and the 4 have to go here. So in this pentomino, where does the 4 go? It can't go there anymore because of the 4 there or there, so that's the 4. Now where does the 3 go in this pentomino? It can't be there or there, can't be there or there, so that's the 3. And that tells us which way round these arrows go. So those must be the 1s, those must be the 2s, and that is a 1. From this point it becomes a fairly trivial solve. Again, it's quite difficult to make a 5 by 5 Sudoku interesting because there are only so many different variations you can make. But anyway, let's complete the solve. I made it as interesting as I could by finding the word zippy. I did try other words. You can spell vinyl with the letters that indicate shapes, these pentomino shapes. That's a V, obviously that's an I. N looks like that. We've already got a Y, and L looks like that. But there's no way of arranging those so that they fit perfectly within a 5 by 5 grid, unless I've missed something, which I don't think I have. That would have been really satisfying to get vinyl, but the closest I could get to an English word was zippy. Anyway, where was I? Let's just finish this solution. That's a 5 and that's a 3 to complete the columns. Now to complete the pentomino, that's a 4. We need a 2 and a 5 in here, and we can make that 5 there and a 2 there. And now to complete this pentomino, that becomes a 5, so that becomes a 1. Now we need a 5 and a 3 in here, a 3 and a 4, a 4 and a 2 and a 2 and a 1. And that is our 5 by 5 Sudoku, zippy. Alright then. Good, right, moving on then to our 6 by 6 Sudoku. I'm not going to lie, this is just an in-joke with a couple of my friends. Exponential, Spao, Erowth. There is a reason for it, but I'm not going to delve into the details for this. It's a little bit daft and really not worth explaining. So let's just go straight into the Sudoku again. It is fill in each row, column and marked region. Again, the regions are irregular regions. They're not nice rectangles like that, like we usually find in a 6 by 6 Sudoku. So the marked regions are irregular. Fill those and the rows and the columns in with 1 to 6 exactly once. Now this one has the knight's move constraint, which means that 2 cells a knight's move apart cannot be the same. We need those 2 cells to be different, and that goes throughout the whole grid. Anything that's a knight's move apart in chess, that's 1 along and 2 up, or 1 along and 2 down, or 2 along and 1 up and 2 along. I'm sure you know what a knight's move is. They cannot contain the same digit. The thermometer in row 1 increases from the bulb to the end, so that must be the smallest digit, that must be the largest digit, and this line is a palindrome. All that's really telling us is that those two digits are the same, so that this kind of when read in a line is the same forwards and backwards. And those are the rules, so let's have a go. Well, this thermometer, I've basically put this in as a fancy way of giving you 6 digits, because obviously the only way to complete it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we put any of those out of order, then that 6 is bigger than the 5, and so the thermometer is broken. So those are basically given digits. Now let's have a look at the 1 in this region. It can't go in any of those squares, so it goes there. Now in this region it has to go in one of those 2 squares, because it can't go there. In this region, because there's a 1 in either of those 2, the 1 can't go in there, so it must go there. Now there isn't a 1 in any of those, so it must go in there. And now actually we have more information about this region, because 1 can't go there, and by knight's move it can't go there either, so a 1 is definitely in there. So that's all of the 1s. We've considered all of the regions and put the 1 possibilities in there. So in this column there is only 1 possibility for the 1, and that's there. So that rules out these 3 by normal Sudoku, and those 2 by knight's move. Now there's only 1 option left in this column, and it's here. And that's all we can do on 1s for now. We now have a 1 either there and there, or there and there. Except there is the palindrome to help us out here, because if that's a 1, that would mean, because of the palindrome, there's also a 1 there. So actually we can finish off our 1s. Now let's have a look, not at a number, but at this cell. This cell, whatever number it is, can't be repeated in any of those in that region, so it must be there. And then, once it's there, it can't go in any of those in this region, or that, because it's there, so it must be there. And then for the same logic, it can't go in any of those, or either of those, so it must be there. So these are all the same. I'll just highlight them red, why not? And now it can't go in either of those 2, or that one. And this one is ruled out by knight's move over here. So this is the last one. So we need a digit to go in here. Well, whatever digit this is has only got 1 space left in the grid, and that is in the only row and column left that we haven't already put a red cell. So it must go there. That must be red. 6 must be red. Red must be 6. Let's get rid of the highlighting. Now let's have a look at 5s. This 5 in particular, well, that's the only 5 we have at the moment. That rules out a 5 from here by normal Sudoku, and from these 2 by knight's move. So in this region, the only place it can go is here. Now in this region, the only place it can go, it can't go in either of those, or there, whoops, or there. So it's here. And now in this region, it's ruled out of there by knight's move, and those 2 by normal Sudoku. So that is a 5. We've now got to place a 5 in 2 of those positions, and obviously it's not going to be that one, so it's also not going to be that one. Those are the remaining 5s. Okay, and it's at this point where I start to worry that oh no, I can see the next thing to do. It's this 3, is it? Well, it's a 3 here, because it's ruled out of here by normal, and there by knight's move, so that is a 3, and this becomes a 2-4 pair. In this region, a 4 can't go there by normal Sudoku or there by knight's move, so that is a 4. Now this becomes a 2-3 pair, but that 3 tells us that can't be a 3, so that is a 2, that becomes the 3. Now let's go with this region. For 3s in this region, that 3 rules that out by knight's move, and then this one looks over here, so that must be a 3, and because of the palindrome we now know that that is a 3. So this is a 2-4 pair, and actually we can resolve that now. That's a 4, that's a 2, that makes that a 4, and that a 2. This is 2, 3 and 4 in that order. So that's a 2, that's a 4, and that is the Exponential Spao Erowth solved. Good, alright, let's keep going we're nearly there. We've done 4, got 3 to go, but this is probably the trickiest one. It's certainly the most interesting one, I think, and it's the most satisfying because the layout of the grid in terms of the regions is entirely symmetrical rotationally. It's got 180-degree rotational symmetry, whereas the arrows have what's it called? Horizontal symmetry, or do I mean vertical symmetry? The mirror is vertical. So I think it's quite cool because it's always something that Sudoku setters love to do. They love to create symmetrical grids and make it all nice and easy to solve, because whatever you do on one side of the grid, you can use the same logic on the other side of the grid. But if it is completely symmetrical, then there's no way to distinguish, or well, it depends what type of symmetry you're going for, but usually there's no way to distinguish between 1 and 9 or 2 and 8, that kind of thing. But with this one, we do have a unique solution, because there's a kind of asymmetry created by the fact that the layout is rotationally symmetrical and the arrows are reflectionarily symmetrical. Right, anyway, enough about the setting. Let's do the solve. But first, let's read the rules. It's the same as what you're expecting. Each row and column and marked region, again we've got irregular regions, must contain the digits 1 to 7 exactly once each, and the arrows sum to the number in the circle. So those 4 sum to that. Now there is potential confusion here, because this arrow could be indicating those 4 if it's going into here and kind of bouncing back, and then this one would be going into here and bouncing back. That's not the case. I don't know, I would instinctively think that they cross each other. I don't have the software to be able to give them different colours to make it clear, but anyway, they do cross each other. Hopefully that's clear enough. And also, if you're interested in why I've called it COYI, which stands for Come On You Irons, it's just because it looks vaguely like the West Ham United football logo. Which one was it? That one. Good. Can you see that? There's a bit of a resemblance there. There's just an extra cross going on at the bottom, but never mind. All right, let's solve the Sudoku. Oh yes, and just a quick note on West Ham. At the time of recording, last weekend West Ham beat Liverpool, and being a Liverpool supporter, I'm totally fine with this and not at all annoyed or bitter. But I do have family that supports West Ham, so I'll let them off. I don't hate them. They're my second team, as it were. Right. Okay. Enough stalling. The solution goes like this. So, what you might be tempted to start with is a little bit of geometry. For example, just like we had in the last Sudoku, there are some cells that have a lot of power in terms of the relationship between rows and regions. In other words, this cell must be either here or here in this region. But if it's that one, if those two are the same, then in this region it's ruled out of all of those and that one, so it would have to be there. And then in this kind of S-type region, the only place left for it would be there. And now it's ruled out of all of the spaces in this kind of L region, just there. So that is that's broken. So it can't be that. So those two must be the same. And because this is rotationally symmetrical, these two must also be the same. And then from there you can rule out all of those from being green. So one of those two has to be green, which rules out all of those, which means one of these has to be green. But unfortunately, this logical path leads you to a dead end. So I'm actually going to get rid of the colours, because actually the thing to do is to look at these arrows. So what do we know about these two digits? Well, the most they can be is a 6 and a 7, because the highest digit in a 7 by 7 Sudoku is 7, and the second highest is 6. So those two could add up to 13. What that means is that these digits, with the middle one being counted twice, and that is important, they add up to a maximum of 13. Well, let's see what happens if we minimise all of these and then ask ourselves a question about the middle one. This could be a 1 and a 2. This could be a 1 and a 2. But because this is in the same region as both of these, that has to be at least a 3 now. Oh, that's not 3, that's a 3. And we can make this as low as 1. So that makes 1 and 2 there, that's 3 plus 3 plus 4. That makes 10. So we need this, well, this doubled to be no more than 3, because we need this to be no more than 13. We've got 10 already, and we need to put something there that's going to make the total no more than 13. So if we put a 2 there, that's 10 here, plus 2 doubled, that's 14, that's too much, so that's not going to work. So that does in fact have to be a 1. Now let's ask ourselves, can these two digits avoid containing a 1? Can they not contain a 1? Well, if they don't contain a 1, the lowest they can be is a 2 and a 3, and that makes well, 5, and then plus 1 is 6. So we'd have to make that a 1 as well to keep this down to being just 7. Then, because of the 2-3 pair in the region and the 1 in the column, that would have to be at least a 4. And then, because that can't be a 1, that would have to be at least a 2. We've already got 7, and we know that can't even be 7 because there's a 7 in there, and it has to be higher than 7 because we need to place something there. It's all just broken, it's all just too much. That does not work, so we do need to have a 1 in one of these spaces. Now, and this, it's not easy to realise that, oh sorry, I've deleted that 1 in the middle, haven't I? We do know that that is a 1. That is a 1. It's not easy to realise the next question to ask, but the correct question to ask is, can this be a 1? So if this is a 1, let's put a 1 there. Where can it go in this region? Well, it can't go there or there by normal Sudoku, and it can't be there because it can't be the sum of two numbers in the grid. So it would have to be there. And now, in this region, it would have to be here. And now in this region, it would have to be here. And let's keep going. In this region, that's the next one to look at, it would have to be there, and that would mean the last one goes here. So this is a little bit bifurcatory, this is a little bit kind of guesswork, but yes, let's see what happens when we have this arrangement. Well, we've got all of the 1s, and we don't have any more 1s on all of these, so this now becomes a minimum of 2, 3. And this becomes a minimum of 2, 3, and this becomes a minimum of 2. So that's 5, plus another 5, that's 10 already, plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, that makes 14. We can't make that 14, that's too much. So we do need more 1s to appear in the arrows somehow. Or we need them in a different configuration. Basically, this is all wrong. So that 1 is correct. I keep deleting that. And we've just proven that can't be a 1, so that must be the 1. Now what happens? Well, this must be, well, they can't be 1s anymore, so let's minimise them. Let's see what happens if we minimise this entire arrow. So that would be a minimum of 2, that's a minimum of 2, and that's still a minimum of 1. So that's 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, that makes 6. But it can be as high as 7, which means we have 1 degree of freedom all the way along here. So one of these can potentially go up by 1 to make that a 7. Otherwise it's 2, 1, 2, 1, 6, and that will be fine. Now, what can this cell be? Can it be a 2? Well, no, because we know that this arrow only has 1 degree of freedom, so that means that at least one of those has to be a 2, so that can't be a 2. Can it be a 3? If it's a 3, then we get 3, 1, 1. That makes 5. This can't be a 1 anymore because we've got a 1 in the region, so that would have to be a minimum of 2. Let's just type this all in to make it clear. 3, 1, 1, 2. So that becomes a 7. These are both 2s. That becomes a 1. Oh no, sorry. No, I'm not talking rubbish. That becomes a 6. What am I missing? I'm missing some. Oh, there are 2 2s in this region. That's what it is, right? Yeah. So the proof. I overshot that a little bit. Yeah. So if this becomes a 3, then we'd have to make that a 2 to keep this down to being only 7. And then there's a 3 and a 2, both looking at that cell. It's these irregular regions. It's so difficult to remember how they work. But anyway, yeah, that's the neat way of proving it. Not. But yeah, so that can't be a 3. Can it be a 4? Well, if it's a 4, 4, 1, 1, that would have to be a 1, which makes that, and that would be a 7 if that's 4, 1, 1, and 1. That makes that a 2. That's our degree of freedom taken for this, so that has to be pushed up to 7, and that obviously clashes, so that doesn't work. And if that's a 5 or anything higher than 5, it's just going to work even less. So it is just a 1. So we get 1, 1, 1 there. I think, yes, there is more that we can do with 1s now, yeah, because in this region it now can't go in any of those 3, and in fact in this region it can't, oh no, sorry, it can still go there in that region, but in this region it can't go in any of those 3, so it must go in, well, one of those 2, which means in this region it can't go there. We also know it can't go in there, so that is a 1. Which means, what does that mean? It means we've got 1s there or there, we've got 1s in there, and we've got 1s there or there. But it's not there because it's in the same region as that one. So that means it is there, so it can't be there. That is now in the same region as the one that we've just got, so it has to be there, and that is all of our 1s done. And that 1 means that that can't be a 1 anymore, so it's a 2, and that is our degree of freedom taken up for here. So these have to be minimised, and that ends up being a 7. Now that is a maximum of 6, and that, because it's not a 1 or a 2, is a minimum of 3, and that's exactly what it has to be to make that work. Alright, let's have a look at these lower arrows now, because that can't be a 1, 2 or 3, so it must be a 4 or 5. Why can't it be 6? Well, if it's 6, then 6 plus 2 equals 8, and 8 is not a legitimate digit in a 7x7 Sudoku. So it's sort of 4 or 5, which means if that's 2 and 4, that's a 6, and if it's 2 and 5, it's a 7, and if that's 1 and 4, that's a 5, and if it's 1 and 5, it's a 6. Either way, we definitely have a 6 there or there. Okay. Now let's actually look in a bit more detail at the 6s, because in this region a 6 can't go in there, it has to go in here, which means in this region it can't go in here, so it has to go in here. Now, what about this 6th row? Because of the 6 there or there, the 6 can't go in here, so it has to be here or here. Now, at this point we could be clever about this and say that there is a 6 X-wing going on in here, which means that in the final solution we'll either have a 6 here and here, or we'll have a 6 here and here, because there has to be a 6 in either here or here, and there has to be a 6 in either here or here, which means there has to be a 6 there or there, and there has to be a 6 there or there. And that, what that means is it rules out all other 6s out of those 2 columns. So that's not a 6 anymore, so that must be a 6. And now there isn't a 6 in this part of this region, so the 6 must be in that part of the region, which means it can't be there anymore. Alternatively, a much easier way to think about it, if you're the kind of person who actually notices these irregular regions that I've drawn, unlike me, is that once that we get that there's a six there or there in this row, then they're both occupying the same region, which means we can't have another 6 in this region. So that's not a 6. Either way, we come to the conclusion that that is a 7, and these two must be the 6s, and not that. And now to satisfy these arrows, that becomes a 5. And at this point, it just becomes not regular Sudoku, but not far off either. And so I need to start trying to spot things that I might not have found. This is a 4-7 pair. Where does... Hang on, what's going on? Come on, I can do this. You're probably all screaming at the screen at this point. There's a 5 here or here. No, this is... Come on. 4, 5, 6, 7, except that's not a 5. That's not a 7. That's useless. Oh, and that's not a 6 because of the 6 there or there. Okay, well, let's actually continue to look at 6s then. So there's a 6 there or there in that region. We do have 6s in those positions. We need a 6 there or there. And so in... Hang on, what's going on? 6 there or there, and then we need a 6. It's going to be some configuration like that, isn't it? I've completely confused myself. You know what? I'm getting rid of these pencil markings. I'm just completely confusing myself here. So where do the 6s go? We've got 6s in these positions. So we need to complete these 3 columns and these 3 rows somehow. So those are our possible 6s, except there's definitely a 6 in here because that's the only place in the region, so that's not a 6. Ah, right, and yes, and the only available place in this region is there or there, so that's not a 6. So that now does become a 6, and that's not a 6. Well, obviously that's not a 6 because there's a 6 in the region. Right, okay. I'm getting there slowly. I promise I did design these Sudokus. I haven't just picked them up off the street. Alright, so there's a 6 either there and there, or there and there. Right, I'm going to start filling these pencil marks back in again. So that's a 4 or 7 because of the row logic, but because of the region logic, it has to be a 4, and that has to be a 3. And that 4 sees that, so that's a 7, that's a 4, 5 pair, which means that's a 3, 7 pair. What do we need down here? 2, 4 and 5? Well, that's not going to be a 5, that's not going to be a 2. And that leaves a 3 and a 7 left in the box. Which leaves in the column a 2, 4 and 5, I suppose, but there's a 2 in the region, all the way over there, so that means a 2 can't go in here, so it must go in there, so that sorts out the 4, 5 along here. This must be 4, 5, that leaves a 3 and a 7 in here, so these must be 6, 4 and 5. Okay, we'll come back to that. In this region, a 2 can now only go here, a 4 can only go here, and a 3 and a 5 go in here, which leaves a 7 over here, which makes both of these 3. That's a 7, that makes that a 7, that makes that a no, not a 5, a 3. That makes that a 7. What? I'm going too fast for my own good here. A 2 in this region can only go here now, and that sorts out our 6s. Good, so that's a 4, 5. This is also a 4, 5, but that 4 sorts it for us. This is now a 3, which sorts that out, and that 4 actually also sorts that out, and that. And we need a 2 here and a 4 there. Finally, right. Not the smoothest solution ever, but I did get through in the end. Hopefully you had a go as well, and maybe solved it more smoothly than that. But yeah, it's not an obvious one. It doesn't fall apart very easily. You could argue that there is a little bit of bifurcation required to get some of those steps. It does become a bit of a testing out the combinations kind of exercise with these arrows at first, especially disproving that that can be a 1. There's probably a more elegant way of doing that, but the way I did it was by filling in all of the 1s in the grid if that's a 1, and then realising that that would mean no more spaces for 1s along here, and that would just make the arrows add up to way too much. Maybe it's not the most efficient way of solving it, but if there is a more efficient way, I haven't found it. I just like the setting, really. It's a very neat, very symmetrical, very visually, aesthetically pleasing setting. And that is COYI. So there's one more left in the set, and the 7th one in the video is a kind of bonus puzzle at the end. So this one is called I've Run Out of Title Ideas. Yeah, genius. So fill in each row, column and marked region with the digits 1 to 8 exactly once. This is an 8x8 Sudoku now, of course. Again, we have these irregular regions going on all the way throughout the grid. This is another anti-knights Sudoku. That means that these two, for example, can't be the same digit. Those two, etc., etc., because they are a knight's move apart. And the thermometer in row 1 increases from the bulb to the end. So let's have a go at this, and this time we do have 4 given digits in a nice, aesthetically pleasing order. So just like with the 6x6 Sudoku, this is basically a fancy way of giving you 8 digits straight off the mark. If we swap any of them around, that breaks the thermometer. And now we can get on with the proper solving. And the first place to look is in this final row of the Sudoku. We need those two. Where do those two go in this region? Well, they can't go in any of those, so they have to go there and there, and vice versa. Those two cells have to go there and there. In other words, that has to be 7 and that has to be 4. And now that we've got those 4s and 7s, we need 4 and 7 in here. In fact, actually, we also need a 3 in here because a 3 can't go in here. So we need 3s, 4s and 7s in here. There's also a 4, not in there, but in one of those 4 squares. And because of the knight's move, it has to be one of those 2. So we can put 4s either there or there. And actually, also we can do some similar logic with this region. Well, we've already got the digits 1 to 6, so those must be 7 and 8. So a 7 is ruled out from those cells as well, because the 7 and 8 in here. So we need 7 and 8 to appear somewhere in here. So what do we know? Well, that 7 means that that can't be a 7 by knight's move. And what that tells us about the 7s is that that can't be a 7, because that 7 there rules out those two by normal Sudoku and rules out that one by the knight's move. So that is not a 7. We can actually do a lot more work with the 4s, because we know there's a 4 there or there. So if that's a 4, if that's a 4, that rules out a 4 from there by normal and there by knights. So that's not a 4, that's not a 4. And that 4 there also rules out that one by normal and that one by knights. So that is not a 4. There's a 4 there or there. Also, the 3s are ruled out of those two positions by knight's move. And at this point, right, yes, there's more we can do with the 4s, and it's in this region, because the 4 rules out all of those, so 4 has to go in here. And that tells us that that can't be a 4, because that rules out that by normal Sudoku and that by knight's move. So that is not a 4, that must be a 4 instead. And that does in fact tell us that that is a 4 and that is a 4. We've almost got a 7-8 pair in here, but not quite. Let's just assess our 4s. Where are they all? We've got all of the columns except the first 2 and all of the rows except those 2. So this is as of yet unresolved. and that's all we can do with that for the time being. Right, where does... This is where I panic. No, it isn't. No, it's fine. Because where does... what's left here? 5, 6 and 8. That 5 rules a 5 out of there, and that 6 rules a 6 out of there. Maybe it is where I panic after all. I'm sure there was something more I was able to do with all of this. Oh, the 4s, of course. That 4 sees that by knight's move, so actually we have resolved our 4s after all. Those are our 4s. And that means in the bottom row, the 1, 2 and 3 have to be there, but that can't be 1 because of knight's move, and that can't be 2 because of knight's move. And in fact, that tells us that there is a 2 or there in the row, so that must be the only places it can go in the region. That rules it out for anywhere else in the region. So what does that mean for this column in terms of the 2s? It can't go in that region anymore, and it can't go there because of knight's move, so that becomes a 2. Bless you. Get it? A 2? Never mind. I promise it's funny. Deary me. Right. Okay, what do we know about 2s? They're quite restricted in here because they can't go there by normal, there by knight's move, there by knight's move, there by knight's move, there because it's already a 4, and there by normal Sudoku, but that's not as restrictive as we want it to be. Yeah, I mean, no matter how many times I practice solving my own Sudokus, there will always be times like this where I just forget what the next step is. You'd think, oh, I know a good next step. This is it. Oh dear. Oh dear, that 2 sees that. You miss some pretty obvious stuff when you're doing this kind of recording, and I've been doing, this is my 6th Sudoku in a row. I think I can let myself off. I'm hoping you can forgive me as the viewer for perhaps missing certain more obvious things. Anyway, where does a 1 now go in this region? Well, it can't go there, and it can't go there. That was probably something we could have done already. That becomes a 1. That becomes a 3. What does that tell us? Well, 3 is restricted to here or here in that region. Does that tell us anything? Maybe not quite. Okay. A 6 in this region has to go in one of those 3 because it can't go there by normal and can't go there by knights. Oh, and it can't go there by knights either. Yeah, why not? Let's put a 6 there. But that's not immensely helpful. Let's put 5, 6, 7 and 8 in here. Okay, that's something we can do. We can rule out a 7 from here because we know there's a 7 there or there, and they both see that by knight's move. So that becomes 5, 6 or 8. What do we know about this cell? Yeah, that's what we should be asking. What do we know about that cell? Well, these 2 cells have to be the same as those 2, and that's obviously the same, so these 2 have to be the same. What can that be? What options does it have? Yeah, it doesn't have many, does it? It can't be a 2 by knight's move. It can't be a 3 by normal. Can't be a 4 by normal. Can't be a 6 by knight's move. Can't be a 7 or an 8 by normal, just there. So it is a 1 or a 5. I think that's all we can do for now. There's probably something else. I'm sure there was something else we could do that when I did a practice solve of this earlier. But we'll leave that for now. What about where it goes in this region actually? Because it's... no, it can still go... Oh, it can go in any of those. And what do all of those cells have in common? Sorry, just to clarify that, this cell, whatever it is, can't go in here in this region or here. So it's got 3 options in this region, but something that those 3 options all have in common is that they see a 1. So that can't be 1 anymore. So that has to be 5. That has to be 5, and that rules out a 5 from all of these spaces, those 2 by normal and that by knights, which means that in the column, sorry, the row, that has to be a 5. Now, now there was something clever going on with the 6s and 8s down here, I think, and I can't remember what it is. So instead, let's just assess these 5s again. There's a 5 there or there. We've got the 5 for this column. In this column, we need a 5. Can't go there by normal, can't go there by knight. It's obviously not there. Oh, it can't go there because it's in the region. Can't go there. So it must go there or there. Is that helpful? I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure it is. We'll come back to that. Deary me. Right. What about the 3s? Oh, I did so well solving this earlier. I promise. It's the pressure. It's the camera being on. It's the pressure. Right. So, oh, I know what it is. Right, this digit. Where did it go in this region? In fact, what are these cells? This is something we could have done ages ago. We've got a 3 and a 7 in here. So, yeah, they are 3 and 7. Simple enough. If a 3 goes there or there and a 7 goes there or there, then they must be the digits 3 and 7. That is guaranteed. So that cell, whatever it is, can't go in any of those, and those are all taken already. So that must be 5, 6 or 8. There we go. That's the clever thing that I remember doing earlier in the solution. That 5 now sees that by knight's move, so that becomes a 6-8 pair, and there's all sorts we can do with that now. Let's just go back to that bit that we just said. Those 2 have to be the same, and that can't be a 5 anymore, so that is not a 5. That now means that the only place left for a 5 in that region or row, whatever, however you want to think of it, is there. This 6-8 pair means that we need we can't have any more 6s or 8s in that column. So that's not an 8, and that is not a 6. So that is a 6. Okay. Right. So these 2. Right. Yeah. So these 2 are different. These 2 are different digits. One of them is 6 and one of them is 8, and both of them see that. So that can't be 6 or 8. So it's 7. What next? What next? What next? What's left in this box? It's 3, 6 and 8, isn't it? Yeah, unless I've missed something, we can't yet resolve those. What it does mean is that, oh, well, there's a 1 and 8 in here, just because of the column logic. That was a little bit underwhelming. In this column we've got a 6 and an 8 and a 1, 4 and 5, so we've got a 3, 7 and 2 left. But that can't be, that's seen by knight's move by 3 and 7, so that is a 2. Now what's left in this row? It's just 1 and 3. Okay. What about this region? We've got 1, 2, 4 and 8, so these are 3, 5, 6 and 7. The 3 goes, the 5, the 6, the 6 goes, right, the 6 goes in there or there because the 6 sees those 2 by knight's move, so those are both 6. Well, one of them is a 6, which means that can't be a 6 anymore, so that becomes an 8. That becomes a 6, and that solves our 8, 7 up here. That should give us more information about the 7s, because those aren't 8s anymore, so it's a 3, 6 pair. And that's the only digit left in the column, so that's a 7. Let's just have a quick look. Where are all of our 7s? They are there. Oh, that 7 resolves that for us. So that becomes a 3, that becomes a 7. That 3 sees that, so that's a 1, that becomes 3, that is now 8, that resolves that. I think we might be on the home stretch here. I don't want to speak too soon, but we've got 3, 5 and 6 in here, but that's not a 5. And which one wasn't a 6? That one, because of Knight's move. And that's also not a 6 because of Knight's move. Nice. So that does give us a 6 in the middle, which resolves that for us, and that resolves this over here for us. What's left in here? 1, 2, 7 and 8. Let's put them all in and rule them out one by one. The 1 cannot go there or there, and that's it. The 2 can't go there or there by Knight's move, and I think that's it. The 7 can't go there or there or there. Okay, so that is the 7, and now the 8 can't go there or there, so that is 8, and that becomes 1 and 2 like that. Probably not the most efficient way to do it, but we've done it. That's 5 and 6, but that 6 sees that cell, so that is that way round. This is 1 and 2, but that 2 sees that cell, so that's that way round. Oh, this 6 has been staring at that for ages now. That resolves all of that for us. What do we need in here? Oh, that 3 resolves that for us. That's 5 and 3. We need 5 and 6 in here, so they're that way round, and we need what do we need in here? 1 and 2, so they're that way round. There we go. Good, finished, and that is all of the Sudokus from 3 by 3 to 8 by 8. But that's only 6 Sudokus, and I promised 7. Well, this is a little bonus Sudoku for you. This was an earlier draft of ZIPPY, which I called Wuppy. I'm glad I found ZIPPY. It's at least slightly closer to an English word. So this is Wuppy, because we've got a W here, we've got a U shape here. Well, it looks more like a backward C like that, but obviously if you turn it around it's a U. We've got 2 P pentominoes, and we've got another Y pentomino. These are arrows, they're separate, so these 2 add up to that, and separately those 2 add up to that, and these are little killer clues. So this is the main reason that this was an earlier draft that I thought wasn't as good as ZIPPY, because we've had to use an extra type of clue, and that's just not very efficient. But it is quite neat that we've got the symmetry of the 4s going on. It's just a disambiguator, really. So let's have a go. Yes, so the little killer clues, those 3 add up to 4, and those 3 add up to 4. I just realised I didn't explain that very well. Well, let's look at those bits first. So in order to make 3 digits add up to 4, they must be 1, 1 and 2. But these 2 have to be different because they're in the same region, so this must be 1 and 2, and that must be 1. And then, yeah, well, I mean, this middle row logic should be fairly obvious. We can't put a 4 in there because where does a 5 go? We can't put a 3 in there because it's a 5. It's a 5, okay? So in order to make those 2 add up to 5, that becomes a 4. This is a 3-2 pair now, but obviously if we put a 3 in there, then those 2 both have to be half, I guess. So we have to put a 2 in there, and those now both have to be 1 to satisfy this diagonal, and now to satisfy this one, that becomes a 2. Now that's a 3, and the rest is fairly trivial. So in this box we need a 2 here. In this box that's 4 and 5. A 1 has to go in there. What am I missing? This is 2 and 3, so that's a 4, which means that's a 3 to complete the pentomino. That becomes a 3, that becomes a 3, this becomes 2 and 5. In fact, actually, that's a 3 and that's a 2, so we can resolve that, and that becomes 5 and 4. That becomes 4, that becomes 1, that becomes 5. That's a 5 and that's a 4. So, yeah, again, nice and easy to finish off. It was just an earlier draft of ZIPPY, which I think is a slightly better puzzle. And slightly more satisfying with these kind of claw shapes, and there's a little bit more logic that you need to break in, although again not much, because yeah, 5 by 5 Sudokus are never going to be that difficult. It's impossible to give it a unique solution without that unique solution being at least relatively straightforward to find. Anyway, that will be a wrap. That's all 7 Sudokus that I've composed in the last couple of days. You can see the pattern. Obviously, I did each of the different sizes. They're all irregular as well, apart from the 3x3 Sudoku. You can make an irregular 3x3 Sudoku by having that as a region and that as a region, and then that would have to be the third region. And like, there's some stuff that you could do to make that slightly interesting, but I thought rather than sticking with the irregular regions theme, I'd just do something that's a bit more interesting and have a bit of fun with some number bases. So everything else stuck to the irregular regions theme. I hope you enjoyed all of those. If you did have a go at solving them yourself, do let me know in the comments down below how you did, how many you solved, how many you needed help with, if any at all. I haven't been playing the timer for any of these, so I'm afraid you won't be able to tell me if you beat my time or not, but hey, it's all a bit of fun. I will be back hopefully next week, and I won't be bringing 7 Sudokus. I think next week I will be bringing 1 Sudoku, but it is an absolute mammoth of a Sudoku that I have been working on for a couple of weeks now, getting it absolutely perfect, making it as hard as possible while still being just about reasonable to expect a human to solve. So I hope you're looking forward to that. It's going to be a fun one. I'll probably forget how to solve it halfway through, but hey, we'll see what happens. Good. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. I don't know how long the video is at this stage. Probably well over an hour. If you fast forwarded through me solving these Sudokus, I don't blame you. But I will shut up now. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you next week for some more Sudokus.